we are with Doris Knight.
Hi, everyone. I'm Doris Knight. I have lived in Orange since 1941. When we get to Orange, I wondered where my father and mother got the town of Orange from. But they lived in the city, and they saw the city going downhill. So they looked for some place to live where they could be quiet. My father had to retire from the railroad because he was hurt on the railroad, and they reimbursed him very well. And so we looked at a lot of houses and a lot of empty spaces, and he found a place on Ridge Road. It was from Arthur D. Clark, and at that time I think he was the town clerk. And then Orange Center Road veered off that. And we had a lovely house there, and my father was a gardener, had a big garden. Everybody had stopped to admire his garden. My mother cooked and canned everything. And I learned how to can, but that was so long ago I've forgotten that. And then we got involved, and one of the things we got interested in right away is the church, because I always went to church when I was in the city, come H or high water. I would have to be to church, and we would go. And so anyway, we walked to everything. There was no cars or anything like that. My father had a second-hand car. That's what we drove. He drove all the time. The garage was built first, and it was built from all spare wood from the old freight cars. And that's where the garage was made. But the house we had built. And one of the Cousin Creole boys came over to look at it. They were looking for a house. And he said it wasn't what they wanted, but it was beautifully built. And it's still there. And I look for it every time I go by. And then we found that the Orange Congregational Church, I think, was the only church in town. And so we went to the Orange Congregational Church, and I joined the choir, and I was introduced to the choir, and the youth group was called the Forum. And I met my husband Frank there, and when I spotted him, was introduced, I said, I'm going to marry that guy. And I chased him till he caught me. And he was a wonderful catch, and he lived to be, he was a wonderful husband. And they don't make men like that anymore. And he worked for Tom Wright and on the farm, and he drove the big tractors and things, and his back backed up on him, and he couldn't work there anymore. And he always accused Tommy of robbing the cradle when he got Judy's mother, Maggie. She was a charm, and she had a great sense of humor, and we were great party pals. Let me see now. Where do I go from here? Well, I worked at Woodruff Seed when I first moved out. That was on Old Grassy Hill Road, and it is now the apartment house on Old Grassy Hill Road.
Can you tell us a lot about the seed company? Because we don't have
And
a lot.
we used to go ice skating in the backyard of the Woodruff Seed, and
What did they have in there? What kind of seed did they have? What kind of seed did they have in
ice skating, I'm sorry.
No, the seed in the Asgrow seed barn where you worked?
No. He worked over to, well, after he left there, he worked for Wilson H. Lee, and that's when Wilson H. Lee was a big building on the Post Road where Home Depot is. They printed books, and we collected them. I worked there too. I rode from my home on Ridge Road, up Orange Center Road, and all the way over to Wilson H. Lee, which was the Boston Post Road. And everything, the bicycle I had that I rode on, I bought for $25 working for the Woodruff Seed, 25 cents an hour. And I saved up $25 to buy that used bicycle, but it was all broken down in a box. I had to put it together, and I did, and I got that. So that's one of the things Frank and I got involved. And then he worked for, but after he got through working at Fairleigh Farms, because he'd hurt his foot on the Wilson H. Lee on one of those, the big loads of paper. And so we went to work for Fairleigh Farms. At that time, Fairleigh Farms was a real active farm. They invented, I guess that's what you'd call it, acidophilus milk. And they weren't too long in business when they finally had to close up. And so my father-in-law was the manager there, and that little house that he lived in, or was the manager in, they rented to a girl when they fixed it over during the World War II. But her husband was killed in an airplane accident. I think her last name was Page. And so he rented it to us for practically nothing a month. And we lived in that place for 10 years. And our first two boys were born when we were in that little house. They were only 15 months apart, but they were riots. My Fred was he's very conservative, you know, but he was really soft inside. Mommies know those things. But John, he was very affable. He had a smile on his face from the day he was born. And he and Fred got along because I never let him fight. I said, he's your brother. You don't fight with your brother. You love your brother. And he put his arm around Fred. I couldn't believe it. It was so cute doing it. I laugh now when I think back of it. But anyway, we looked for a piece of property here. And meanwhile, when Fairleigh Farms closed up, they owed my father-in-law a lot of money. So he took it in property. And he took all of this Old Tavern Road and a narrow lane, and all the way over to Milford Lane, over to Woodruff Road. And in fact, he gave us this piece of property to build a house on. And he gave us the next piece of property between this house and Red Bush, which was part of Fairleigh Farms, and where the workers all stayed. And let me see.
That was a lot of acreage.
Pardon?
That was a big piece
Oh,
of
yeah, it's all the
land.
way down. Narrow Lane was all with just two lanes. If it's wet, you couldn't get through there. But now it's got all these houses on it. And there's a night lane down there, and a narrow, and a Sarah's Circle, which is after my mother-in-law, and Miles Road runs off it. And we built around the corner on Old Tavern, and I've never been sorry. I have my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren right around me, and my son Fred's wife's family lives on the other side of me. I think Betty is still alive in a nursing home, and let me see now. So we built a big garage in the back because my husband was into antique cars, and he had all kinds of things. We had a 1922 Seagrave pumper, and the kids finally sold it. I didn't know they'd sold it. I would have put a stop to that, but, well, it's going to be theirs anyway, so they work down there now. I have a pit. My husband was about 6'5" and a half, 6'6", and we built a hole in the garage there deep enough for him to stand up under the cars. Now the boys, they're tall, but they're not quite that tall, so they have to put a slab down there. But they're all working on the cars. Johnny's working on an old car, and he's got one Thunderbird. Sarah's got one, she just got stock there, and Sarah was my daughter, and she was born 8 years after the boys were. At that time, I was working for U.S. Motors, and they begged me, when I got over having a baby, to come back. And I had a great job there. I loved it, and had great times there. And so when they called me, they figured my two boys were back in school. And I said, well, for the same reason I left, I said, I can't come back. Because those days, when a woman was pregnant, she had to quit when she was 3 months old, 3 months pregnant. So I did, and I had Sarah, and my husband was in shock because the Knight family, the Fish family, were practically all boys. And I said to the nurse, have you introduced my baby to Frank? No. I said, let me. So I said to him, I want you to meet Sarah Prudence Knight. Sarah, a woman? A girl? I said, the look on his face was priceless. He really was crazy about her. He was very reserved, you know. I was the one with the mouth. And, but we had the little girl, and we were here now. So we only had the 2 bedrooms here, one for Frank and I, and one for the 2 boys. And when she came, we had to do something else. So we put the boys downstairs, and we had a bed downstairs for the boys. And Sarah was upstairs with us. She was sleeping in our front hall closet for a while. Not in our closet, in our hall. And but she grew up, and that's a picture of my daughter when she was about 16 years old. And that was a portrait artist of my mother-in-law's, and that was our Christmas present. When she was something. She was a smart cookie. In fact, they were all smart. And they were both all mechanical. And Sarah has a big job at the UI, and its boys now have the shop. We all started the shop. Frank and I started the shop when we were, about 10 years, and we needed a place on the post road because the first year we sharpened 3 hand mowers, 3 of which were $3 a piece. Now that's cheap. And one of the guys didn't pay us. I said, I never forgot. People that don't pay me, I pay my bills, you don't pay your bills, you're no good anymore. You can't work for us anymore, or can't get work done by us. Well, anyway, we built the business, and Frank and I built it from scratch, and we had a piece of property on the post road we were looking at, and I wanted the fellow by the name of Ray Buckles. He had a lot of property, and when Frank first went over, he wanted $3,000 for a big piece of property. And Frank came back. You know, Frank was a Yankee, and he was careful with the buck. Mm-hmm. And my daughter says to me this day, they're all careful with the buck, except her, but she's got it. So, anyway. We got the piece of property, he went back, and next time he went back, he wanted $4,000 for it. So I said to Frank, go get it. We really have to have it. You can't do it in the basement anymore, there's no room. So he went back and he wanted $5,000. I said, go buy it. So he finally did. I had to get on his tail to buy it, but he bought it. And we've never been sorry, they're still there. And we both worked there, and then my husband passed away in 1988. And it's funny, my mother passed away in 78, Frank passed away in 88, and my father passed away in 98. So I kept waiting for each year, it was 8. You know, well, I missed that one, that 8. So 3 times and out.
There you go. So
anyway, we had the boys started working there. Freddie started working there, was very mechanical. And John was very mechanical. And now we have 6 children. I have Fred, John, John's wife Lynn, John's 2 sons. Gregory was his first son, Brian was his second son, and then Carol was a daughter. She's now working there. She was working for Goodwill, but she had to come to a parting of her ways. So she came to work for us, and she loves it. And people still asking for me. I retired 2 years ago. I was bored out of my gourd for 2 years, but it finally dawned on me that I I just can't do it anymore. The changing all these things, getting all these newfangled stuff, all these, I don't know how to work with an iPad. I didn't know how to work with an iPad. I do have two. My daughter just bought me a new one for Christmas, and I have a little difficulty with that. I can't quite get it. It's just enough different from the old one. But she said that was so old. But I said, I got along with it all right, you know. But anyway, that's as it is. And the boys they're well known. And one of the things I always insisted on, and they knew it, is whenever a customer comes in, he's right, whether he's wrong or not. A customer is always right. Did I handle it that way? Let them be right. You know in yourself, they're wrong, but let them be right. And people keep coming back because they know they get treated with product, you know, with dignity, and everything is kind with them, and they don't ever try to gouge anybody out. One of the things I always say about Frank, he used to we had a fellow come in one time. He had an old beat up little rotary mower. It was just a disaster. And he came to pick it up. And I think was only something like $6 or $7 for it. And when he got it, it started up fine. So the fellow said to him, "Oh, it doesn't look like an old new machine to me." Fred said, "Well, we only repair the machines. We don't decorate them or paint them up again." Well, he got mad. So Fred said, "Well, with the patience of a saint, you know," he said, if you aren't happy, he said, "I tell you, take it. There's no charge." He says, "But please find someplace else." And I mean, you know, that really set him back, I guess. And he was a wonderful man. My husband was really, I can't tell you what a wonderful man he was. He had so much wisdom. In fact, he was one of the fire chiefs in Orange. And his father was one of the founders. And Frank was one of the fire chiefs after he came along. And he could settle an argument with two warring factions, have two guys go out and they'd be mad at each other, and they'd go out of there and they'd be smiling and agreeing. And I thought to myself, in a few words he could say would have taken me 50 to say. I would be the one with the mouth and he would be the one with the brains. But he was a wonderful man. And he's one of the starters of this co-op work between the fire departments from like West Haven and Woodbridge and Milford to assist if anybody got in trouble. And they still have that to this day. My father-in-law became a first selectman in Orange quite a while ago. And he helped to develop or they mentored Ralph Capisulatro, who was for years too. And Frank both died, and Ralph both died. So Elaine Capisulatro and I became very close buddies. We traveled together, and with her sister-in-law, Gloria Capisulatro, her husband was also a chief. We traveled together. And I just lost my girlfriend Elaine a couple of years ago now, 2 years ago already. And Gloria and I are still friends and talk to each other now and then, but I'm like her, we're hard of hearing. Few perks with coming with old age, you know. It ain't too much fun. I have to keep saying, "Huh? What? Yeah. Speak to me in my face. You know, don't talk to me from behind me back. I can't hear you. I can't understand you."
Doris, do you have any funny stories from long ago or fond memory?
Well, I have one fond memory.
One?
My son will probably kill me for this.
Uh-oh, then don't.
But when he was just a little boy, and we lived on the farm, Fairley Farm, he came out one day, and we had, of course, in those days, we didn't have furnaces. We had coal furnaces. They had to deliver coal. And he says to me, "Mommy," he said, "how did he get so dirty?" And I said, "Well, Johnny, he's delivering coal, and coal is black, you know, it gets dirty." And the color was a black fellow, he was so funny. The two of us stood there laughing. Johnny didn't know we were laughing, but he was a wonderful fellow. But he was working that. It was his job, you know. We did a lot of dirty jobs too. We were grease monkeys, so to speak. And I have people still asking where I'm at, and they say, hey, she's an old lady, what do you expect? So it was 92, and I decided that was it.
Good.
So,
92, God bless. God
pardon?
bless. 92, that's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's still there.
Oh,
And I think it's getting ready to celebrate their, I think it's 68th. I can't remember that.
Knight's
And when we were,
Lawnmowers?
pardon?
Knight's Lawnmower is going to be 68
Yeah,
years?
Knight's Power Equipment,
Wow.
indoor outdoor equipment. It's
Beautiful.
on the post road, and it's at 286. And we, when we were young, and we had the World War II, I remember on a corner of Racebrook Road and Tyler City Road, they had a tower on the whole farm for airplane watchers. And I remember two of us would go up to the tower and go up and watch planes. We reported 2 or 3 planes, but there were anything serious. But we're close enough to the water, so they wanted somebody to take care of it. We did it. That's how we got that taken care of.
That's good.
So
We should see if we can find any pictures of that.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna, I'm trying to track down the halls. And so we can do that. We'd like to find a picture of that tower if we can.
I don't know if that's still around.
No, the tower's not there, but maybe somebody has a photograph.
Maybe.
I'm gonna check.
yeah.
I'm gonna check, because that I think
Let me
is so
see.
cool. Who would have thought that you were doing that in Orange, Connecticut?
What was that?
Who would have thought that you were looking for warplanes in Orange?
Yeah. I
Right?
was spotting. I had good eyesight then, you know.
That is great.
And I could hear very well.
Good, good.
So,
Doris, this was wonderful. You definitely can keep talking. You're good.
yeah.
You are good. And
I
so
think of what it was down just below there. When we got married, we were supposed to have there was a potato house in back of the farm, and we were going to go live in that. But my brother-in-law took that over and got married. He had 3 sons. He had one son is William Atherton, who's an actor, has been in a lot of shows, and Murder, She Wrote, and
Ghostbusters. He was in
Ghostbusters. Oh yes, and I remember, we played kind of a sarcastic spot, but he calls me every once in a while from California and check me out.
Great. That is
So
great.
it's wonderful to have your kids remember you. But I'm very, very fortunate. I have wonderful kids. My kids watch me. I got a kid. Johnny comes Monday. Freddie comes Tuesday. Sarah comes Wednesday to get my groceries. Johnny comes Thursday. Brian, my grandson, comes on Friday, and we have a little pick-me-up. And Saturday, Freddie comes again, and Sunday I'm on my own. So I get to go to church, and I get to go to the Episcopal church, because that's where my husband's aunt was the organist, and she developed the organ over there, helped them to develop that organ. She taught out at Oberlin, which was the music school, and she was a singer. She sang at my wedding, and she was so funny. Not many people got along with her because she was kind of caustic, but we always got along. And I guess she was always under the aegis of my mother-in-law, because she was the woman at the Congregational Church, played the organ for 50 years, and the organ was was named in honor of her. So I remember all that.
Nice.
So,
Oh, this has been.
but I have great, my kids were all married there. I was married there. My kids were all baptized there. Yeah. But I'm over at the Episcopal Church. I've been there for a long time, and I loved it. I had wonderful connections there, and I still do to this day. And I haven't been able to go in the last month or so, as things have been kind of put my way. But weather last Sunday wasn't too hot, In fact, it was lousy. I said, I looked out, I said, it was snowing like, but I looked out my front window, and out there some stalks coming up out of my plants, and they were all tipped on the top of the stalks with little bits of snow, and they looked just like buds.
Awesome.
And it was so nice to look at.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, this was good.
Yeah.
This was very good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed listening to all your stories.
Yeah.
And Fairley Farm was large. That was really large.
Yeah.
Did they did just that milk? They had the special milk, Fairley Farm?
It was called Acidophilus.
All right.
I haven't heard of it being sold anymore now.
Interesting. Okay.
And it was that was a very active farm. And the people that moved into the Lee House,
Okay.
which is where Wilson H. Lee lived, had it rented again, and we they rented it to this couple that we became very, very close to.
Okay.
In fact, my husband would come home at night and he'd say, "What's for dinner?" I said, "Hot dogs again."
Oh my gosh.
He'd eat hot dogs or hamburgers every day in the week, you know.
Oh, I'm gonna try to see.
Today it's a no-no.
Yeah.
So,
Doris, you worked at the seed company. You worked there, and you said you got 25 cents an hour for that.
weeding is vegetables and picking vegetables and they're planting vegetables.
All right. Did you
I
work
worked-
in the seed barn on Old Grassy
I worked
Hill
out
Road?
I worked out on the farms on the floor, and then on Orange Center Road, the Woodruff woman, she was so funny. She took everybody by surprise because she was sitting on her front lawn in her bra. And she says, well, she says, I wear it, and she says, a lot of other people wear it, and I say it too.
Now, which Woodruff was that?
I don't know which one. I
Maury's-
think it was
Maury's
Mary Woodruff.
Oh, Mary Woodruff.
I think
Okay.
so. I don't remember.
Wow.
I remember picking corn on her ground.
All right. So you did you pick corn for the seed barn too?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Most of it was for seed.
Yeah. And then you have to dry it, correct?
Oh
Do it-
yeah. The
Okay.
barn. That's what they had the barn in. And
Okay.
then when they closed up the barn, they made it into the apartment house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Mitch Goldblatt was there at first. I don't know if he's still there.
Oh, living there?
Yeah.
No. I think no. He's got a house. He has a
Yeah.
house
Goodbye.
there.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now and then I served as a selectman in town for about 10 years. I lost my job by about 10 votes. They wanted me to rerun again, and I said, nah. I said, must be some reason. I said, I guess it must be the good Lord telling me there's something else for you to do, you know? And I got along. I was chairman of the town committee in Orange a couple of times, and I'm still on the town committee. I don't go to the meetings, but I'm still active to a degree,
Yeah.
as much as I physically can. They like your money, though, you know. Everybody likes that stuff.
That's it.
So, but the kids, they're all, you know, they're involved in town, in the fire department. And my husband, like I say, he was a wonderful man, and the church was jammed when he had a memorial service for him. They had him standing up outside. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So.
Well, Doris, thank you.